Okay, morning guys. Thank you to everyone who's done assessment 2 for me. If you have, fantastic. If you want to just go through the answers on here with me and just green pen your way through it. If you haven't done the assessment or sent it to me yet, then please, again, go through it with a green pen and email me your results, please. I didn't get many back, so it would be quite helpful to know that you are still out there and still doing stuff. So please send me your results. Right, let's whiz through it. You did really well on this by and large. There were some pitfalls that we didn't quite get, so I'll just go through those. But very quickly, starting off, green plants at the start of all food chains. These are what we call primary producers, and they get energy from the sun. 1 mark for that. The process that does that is photosynthesis. So you may remember from the video, oh God, we can't do everything, is the equation for respiration. That backwards is photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide plus water, arrow, energy in from the sun, chlorophyll makes oxygen and glucose, or glucose and oxygen, depending on which way you put it. Right, B. So the process transfers light energy to chemical energy because it's stored as glucose, which is a very simple carbohydrate, and the process uses the gas carbon dioxide. So most of us did really well on that. The process produces carbon-containing compounds called carbohydrates. Glucose is a carbohydrate. It transfers into other things as well. So some of those carbohydrates are used to make proteins, some of them are used to make fats. So the plant will make fruits and it'll make all sorts of other structural carbohydrates. But glucose is a carb. Okay, second one is about a food chain. And if you think about the carbon cycle, some of that carbon leaves the food chain going back upwards. How? Well, some of the carbon is transferred as carbon dioxide. As all living things respire, they will release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. The other thing they will lose it as is feces. Feces will contain some carbohydrates in there, or other structural things like cellulose. So that's as the feces in the dropping. As everything else, food eaten by the hawk, that's not losing carbon, that's biomass being taken in by the hawk, and oxygen doesn't lose biomass, it's not losing carbon. Right, waste materials like feces will decay. The organisms that do that, I would have accepted anything really from the combination of decomposers, bacteria, detritivores. Somebody gave an example of fungus. They're all decomposers. Okay, so they're part of that recycling cycle we looked at as part of the carbon cycle. Then we got to this question which you all did really well at, so fantastic. 3 conditions that help decay to occur rapidly. So what do we want? We want it warm, we want it moist, and we want aerobic conditions so the bacteria can work. And when we looked at how food is preserved, we preserve food by removing some of those conditions. So we put it in a tin, which kills bacteria, and that obviously prevents oxygen getting in. We keep it dry by salting it or sugaring it or drying it, or we keep it cold by putting it in the freezer. So all of those things take away the warm, moist, aerobic conditions that's what they need. Right, the list below contains 4 substances. 2 of these are produced by decay and can be used by the grass. Well, that's carbon dioxide produced by decay because that goes back into the atmosphere and photosynthesis can use that, and mineral salts. So if you think about a good example of decaying material we use. If you've got a garden and you're a keen gardener, you might have a compost heap. Compost heap has warm, moist, aerobic conditions, and we put it on soil to provide mineral salts. It does not provide protein. Protein is one of the things that will be munched away at by those decomposers. Right, question 3 was the water cycle, and again we did really well on that, so well done. Water evaporates from the surface of the sea, heat from the sun speeds up this process, as does wind. Water vapour in the atmosphere cools and then condenses to form billions of tiny water droplets, and that falls as rain. And then we have a carbon cycle, and this shows the food cycle. So carbon dioxide in the air is taken in by grass. Process A is photosynthesis, which I have misspelt, and I will change before I send it to you. Explain as fully as you can how some of the carbon in the grass becomes part of the fox's body. So there's 3 marks for this, and there's a number of points there. So what happens? Carbon dioxide is absorbed by photosynthesis. It's converted into carbohydrates, fats and proteins in the grass. That is what we call a primary producer. So how does it get to the fox? Well, simply put, the grass is eaten by the rabbit, which means the carbohydrates, the fats and the proteins end up in the rabbit, which is a primary consumer. Now, it's the protein primarily we're concerned about, because protein is what makes animals grow. We use it for growth and repair. So the rabbit takes on the protein from the grass. That's eaten by the fox, which is a secondary consumer, so the protein is moved from the rabbit to the fox. Not all of it. Quite a lot is lost in other processes. So respiration loses a large amount of that biomass. Various other processes, excretion loses some of that biomass. But that's what we're looking for 3 marks. Okay, protein in the grass gets eaten by the rabbit, which is converted into animal protein. That's then eaten by the fox, which is a secondary consumer. So the carbon in the grass, eaten by the primary consumer, passed on to the secondary consumer. Okay, 3 marks there. Right, the spiral learning one. This is all about tropisms. This particularly is phototropisms. Why do plants grow towards light? So here's a test for that. We've got all these different shoots there, and what we've done with A and B is we've wrapped them in aluminium foil. Why? Because we're looking at phototropism. We're looking at how light affects it. So how do we make sure we can see if light affects it? Well, we cover it. We cover it from light. So A, we've covered the stem to see if that affects growth, and B, we've covered the tip to see if that affects the growth. So we've deprived both of those by light. C, we've cut the tip off, where we believe most of the cells are that will promote growth, and D, we've left as our control sample there. So first bit then, what's the purpose of the aluminium foil? Stop light reaching the shoot. It's nothing to do with insulation, because that would be changing another one of the variables, and we don't want to do that. It's not going to affect gravity. Gravity is not affected by tin foil, and it won't hold the shoot straight. B particularly won't. Right, hormone stimulates growth. That hormone is an auxin, and so what happens to auxins? Well, auxins migrate away from the light. I've found a nice picture there and put that there for you. But what happens is auxins promote growth. So you've got a nice distribution of auxins, and when light hits one side, the auxins move to the shady side, and that causes that side to grow, and that side then grow towards the light. So the correct answer is the bottom one, and there's a little explanation there. So by and large, we did all right. So I'm pretty happy you're fairly confident with most of this. Please green pen your way through it. Any problems, questions, comments, queries or concerns, give me a shout at the usual address. Otherwise, guys, take care of yourselves, and I'll hopefully see you soon.